Hi, I'm Adam Savage from Barker's Fencing. Thanks for joining us today. I hope to give you a little insight into the LPS 1175 standard and just how rigorous the testing is. I'll show you attacks carried out by the LPCB so you can compare how standard fencing products perform when attacked versus LPS 1175 certified products. It really is hard to fully appreciate how difficult and demanding LPS 1175 certification is without seeing and understanding how fences are attacked and assessed. I'll also discuss the value of spending extra money on tested products versus standard and talk a little bit about the different circumstances in which mesh and palisade fences are appropriate. First, we will look at SecureGuard, Barker's version of a standard 358 mesh fence, versus Barker's SecureGuard SL2 X, our mesh fence accredited to LPS 1175 B3, previously known as SR2. What the B3 rating means is that it will prevent an attacker using Toolkit B from gaining access for more than 3 minutes. Toolkit B is mechanical tools such as bolt cutters, claw hammers and chisels, etc. These are the kind of tools that will be used by an attacker who has an idea or some experience of breaking through fences, and they've carried these tools with the intention of breaking in. In truth, it's unlikely that these tools would be carried simply by an opportunist, which is why on many occasions a standard fence can be appropriate for a site perimeter. SecureGuard SL2 X is Barker's latest development in high security fencing to have attained the LPS 1175 B3 certification. Instead of using additional security features like many other comparable systems, SecureGuard SL2 X has everything required to defeat the attacker already built into the panel. This clever design has 10mm vertical wires rather than the 4mm usually seen on 358 mesh fences, meaning that there is no need to bolt on extra clamp bars or strengthening features or add a second skin of mesh, all of which can make systems costlier and slower to produce. And when it comes to installation, SecureGuard SL2 X's single mesh panel is also easier to handle as it is lighter than many other LPS 1175 B3 certified systems. SecureGuard SL2 X is ideally suited for sites containing valuable items or when a security breach could ruin the site's reputation or damage the business. We're talking about distribution centres, data centres, some water treatment facilities, pharmaceutical or life science sites, and even industrial sites with potentially harmful materials inside. On the flip side, 358 mesh fencing is a standard perimeter system, typically used around schools, industrial sites and other low-risk commercial properties. Now the interesting part, the testing. Even using just a knife and hammer, an attacker can potentially go through the 4mm wires on 358 mesh pretty quickly. However, the knife does very little damage to the 10mm wire on our certified system. It's a similar story with the bolt cutters, with the tester creating a significant hole in the 358 mesh in just 50 seconds. Whereas the 10mm wires on Barker's SecureGuard SL2 X puts up much more resistance. The horizontal wires can be snipped in a similar fashion to the 358 mesh, however when it comes to the vertical 10mm wires, they struggle. Then they blunt the cutters, making it difficult to cut the second side of the horizontal wires. We're also way over the 3-minute time delay now. Next up, a comparison of standard palisade versus our StronGuard SR2. Standard palisade has received some flack in the last few years after videos circulated of how easy it is to breach a palisade fence with simple tools. However, I think we've just seen the same problem with standard mesh systems, and 358 mesh is far from the cheapest mesh system out there. Alternatives with wires further apart, such as V-mesh and twin wire, will be even easier to breach. On the other hand, we have our StronGuard SR2 palisade, which meets the same level of security as SecureGuard SL2 X. To create a high security product, StronGuard SR2 has a 2.5mm W pail, utilising a high load anchor instead of normal bolt, and the pails are much closer together, so it's far more difficult for an attacker to get tools in to damage or cut through the fence. With the standard palisade, the tester can damage, unfasten the bolt and open up the fence in just 13 seconds. Whereas the fixing on StronGuard SR2 delivers way more resistance, and after nearly 2 minutes the hammer had done very little damage. Then the tester tried to chisel off the fixing, but after 3 minutes of being bashed, the fixing is still intact and the StronGuard SR2 fence has not been penetrated. The next test up is the cut test. As you can see, the tester can fit the handsaw through the gaps in the pales on the standard fence, meaning they can cut through and create an opening in just 2 minutes. Whereas with StronGuard SR2 and its narrower pale centres, they can't get the saw in to cut easily, meaning after about 1 minute 20 seconds, it has done little more than scratch the powder coating. In the end, the tester gives up and tries prising the pale outwards to get a better angle. Tommy, carrying out the testing here, isn't your typical opportunist burglar. He's a trained professional whose job it is to be a professional burglar. And he doesn't need to break in quietly. LPS 1175 does not mind if the attack creates a great deal of noise. The standard just measures the speed in which the product can be breached. And the LPCB require full, detailed drawings weeks in advance to analyse the product and look for weak points before they see the fence and conduct the physical test. When choosing an accredited system, it's critical that a design-based threat assessment has been carried out to determine the level of threat. As we've just shown, with the right product, third-party accredited fencing systems will delay an attacker and allow an appropriate response. The main benefit of an accredited security fence to a customer is you know exactly what you're getting with your purchase. Each certification shows a clear security rating which you can cross-reference to show what attack a fence can withstand, and you know that the LPCB's strict auditing procedure gives peace of mind as the product performs as tested. It's no secret that a third-party accredited system will cost more money than a standard one, and this is down to a number of factors. The development that has gone into the system. Bear in mind the LPCB proudly state that 95% of products put forward for testing fail. There is typically additional material required for a more secure system. And there is the compliance and auditing required to maintain the LPS 1175 approval. When looking at the cost difference, it's worth weighing up what the risks are of not having a secure perimeter against what you gain by having invested in such a system. Potential risks if a site is broken into are downtime. Whatever activities go on inside may not be able to continue after an attack, whether that attack was for theft, malicious damage, terrorism or vandalism. Damage to property and the cost to replace anything stolen could be significant. There's a risk of clients losing confidence in your service if you cannot keep their product, goods or people secure. And of course, keeping staff or visitors safe should always be a key priority. And all of these can lead to reputational damage if your site is broken into. Would clients have faith in your operations or ability to store their goods or their data if the perimeter can be breached easily? So, for a customer, the accreditation gives the peace of mind that the fence will protect them and that they're getting what they paid for. The toolkits in the LPS 1175 standard range from bodily force and basic tools up to multiple attackers using petrol grinders. And the time delay required can range from 60 seconds to 20 minutes. So for example, the SR1 or Toolkit A accredited products would typically be used on schools, healthcare facilities and retail parks where they may have an issue with antisocial behaviour or vandals. Whereas SR2 or Toolkit B accredited products are typically used on distribution centres, data centres, sites where they have valuable items or where a security breach could ruin the reputation and damage the business, and the threat is thought to be more determined. Finally, let's look at the comparison of our two accredited systems, SecureGuardSL2 X Mesh and StronGuard SR2 Palisade. Under the certification, both meet the same level of security, so lots of people assume they do exactly the same thing. However, palisade and mesh fencing systems have some distinct differences, pros and cons. Possibly the biggest difference is in the installation, and a good deal of this applies to all mesh and palisade systems. The mesh panel in SecureGuard SL2 X is large and rigid, and although the panel is lighter than comparable mesh systems, a 2.4 metre high panel still weighs 94 kilos, so we'll need mechanical lifting and the access to go with it. The SecureGuard SL2 X panel has to be flush to the floor with no gaps beneath, and if the ground is uneven or if there is any kind of sloping ground, then the mesh must be buried to stop the bottom of the panel being prized up. On more severe slopes, the mesh panel will need to be cut down vertically and extra posts added to stop gaps appearing under the fence. And the post centres on the SL2 X mesh system are also closer together than on the StronGuard SR2 palisade system. So, SecureGuard SL2 X has 10% more holes to be dug and 10% more concrete to be used. On the other hand, StronGuard SR2 palisade is delivered loose, as a kit, making it easier to handle around site and take to areas with poor access. This leads to a little more time in assembly, but the posts are further apart than on the mesh system, and StronGuard palisade can cope with slopes of up to 33 degrees without the contractor needing to cut anything down or buy and install extra posts. Mesh is often preferred in built-up locations as it's considered more friendly and inviting than palisade, but whether this is a pro or a con for your site depends on the security requirement, because on the other hand, a perimeter that looks intimidating can be more likely to deter an attacker. Palisade also typically has spiked pale tops, deterring anyone from climbing over. And as we saw in the attack videos, it can be a lot quieter to attack a mesh fence than palisade, and noise attracts attention, which increases the chance of detection. The final difference between mesh and palisade can be the lifespan of the product. Unless specified otherwise, mesh panels are more often than not made from pre-galvanised wires, which must then be powder coated to add corrosion resistance, whereas palisade is hot dip galvanised and then powder coated when required. The difference is a much thicker coating of zinc on the palisade versus the pre-galvanised mesh panel, and it is the zinc which stops the steel from rusting. Both types of fencing can have security toppings added, such as barbed wire or razor wire, and here at Barker's we can also curve the top of the mesh panel or the top of the pales outwards, which further deters people from climbing. And of course, both systems also come with matching swing gates, turnstiles and cantilever gates, which will seamlessly match the perimeter. So that's all from me. I hope our quick whistle stop comparison has helped you when it comes to choosing an appropriate security fence for your site. And if you have any further queries, please don't hesitate to get in touch. Thanks for listening. Bye.